In the early 1970s, in a barn in Pawling, New York, a man named James Ruberg found a very old handmade tin container holding 2 reels of 35mm motion picture film. The film was very fragile and, being made on nitrate film stock, extremely flammable. It was unidentified. Its source, its maker, the reason it was made were mysteries. Jerome Dio, archivist of the FDR Library in Hyde Park, brought the film to the National Archives, where it was transferred to Safety Film and copies were made. The film shows miscellaneous scenes of Poughkeepsie around 1913. Professionally made, but by whom or why remained a mystery until recently. The scenes in the film were researched by William Schrouth and Hubert Spross, and it is Mr. Spross's narration, recorded in the 1970s, that identifies the people and scenes.
I'm Bud Spross, one of the vice presidents of the Dutchess County History Society. I will endeavor to identify some of the people in this film. Nelson House was the center of activity in the city of Poughkeepsie in 1912. One of the best hotels in the Hudson Valley. This we cannot identify. This is a group of Harry Madison of Madison and Ambler Stationery Store. This is a group of people coming out of the Dutchess Theater. At that time, it was a legitimate playhouse. If a play could make it in Poughkeepsie, it could make it on Broadway. This gentleman we do not know, but he's got quite an automobile. Again, the crowd coming out of the Dutchess Theater at one time was known as the Dirty Duchess. It is now Frivolous Sal's, corner at Crannell and Main Street. Do you recognize anyone in this theater? An apartment above the theater. Trolley car just went by. These are girls working in the Dutchess trousers. Dutchess Manufacturing Company manufactured trousers. 10 cents a button, $1 a rip was their model. This was a foundry. This again is inside of the trouser factory. Poughkeepsie cast stone, one of the first concerns in the Hudson Valley to make concrete blocks. They also made stone windowsills and door steps, Vonda linens, and probably an Indian motorcycle. Vonda linens was a machine shop in the rear. This is Market Street. This is Woody Gindell, great uncle of the present architect. This is Market Street looking south. You'll see the Poughkeepsie Savings Bank, the White Columns Poughkeepsie Savings. Port Cachere is Smith Brothers Restaurant, and the rest was church company property. Main Street looking east. Trolley tracks, Model T Fords, Wallace Company. The brick building on the corner there is where the Marine Midland is today. Doty and Humphreys is now Perlmutter's furniture store. There's the latest model of Buick. What a wonderful car it was in those days. If we only had one now. Caught in the act. This is the police department, Poughkeepsie's finest, in front of the old Reformed church across from the California Fruit Company, corner of Washington and Main Street. Naturally, these police are putting on a show for us. There goes the paddy wagon. The culprit, we believe, is Detective McGowan, Patsy McGowan. This is inside the police department and the only dark part of the film, fortunately. This is Chief McCabe, well-liked and very efficient police chief. He is showing us how in those days they kept track of their customers. They measured them in all ways. From the fingers to the elbow, the length of their fingers, the length of their ears. This is our fine chief of police, real gentleman. Poughkeepsie's finest, every one over 200 pounds. Comes Poughkeepsie's finest. You can laugh, but if you lost a bicycle, you got it back within an hour or so. No windshields, hard rubber tires. This Poughkeepsie that they're coming out of is between the Nelson House and the next building, and they're coming from the Nelson House garage, which was in the rear, just recently torn down. People that owned automobiles in those days during the winter had them completely overhauled. This is the Pioneer Pearl Button Factory on Mansion Street. They made the button from clamshells. Again, the Duchess Theater. This is Lawyer Mulvey, we believe. Great uncle to the present Mulveys in town. We think the man he's talking to was Mr. Guernsey, the founder of the Guernsey Realty Company. The post office in the rear, very fine automobile. Crowley Milk Company. Mr. Crowley started peddling his own milk on LaGrange Avenue in Arlington, and finally built one of the biggest milk companies in the eastern part of the United States. This is Mr. Crowley going over his records. Inside the Crowley Milk Company, we believe a Delaval separator. Segue's Farm on the Red Oak Mills Road, Route 376. This is Zykin's Laundry. We're not quite sure, but we do believe this is Mr. Zykin. Cusick House. In the doorway, Mr. Cusick shaking hands with Daniel Wilbur, who was a New York State Senator. Across the street from the Falkland Bank comes William Shickley, president of the Falkland Bank, and W.W. Smith. This is Frank's Brewery down on Tulip Street. The man in the cap there is Brewmaster Marks. Mr. Marks is the grandfather of the present dentist in town. You will notice in the not this one, but an electric truck they had, run by electricity, 1912. This is the Collingwood Opera House on Market Street. Before the Audubon Society, you'll notice the bird on top of the ladies' hats. No wonder they said, please remove your hat. Again, there were many, many legitimate plays where Caruso sang here. Madam Schumann Hank, Gala Kirchie, all sang at the Opera House. What a beautiful sedan that was that just went by. Mojados, one of our older merchants. Mr. Steinert, one of Poughkeepsie's first oculists. Sweet and Carmen livery stable at 110 Main Street. You could rent a horse or a horse and buggy. He had them. You'll notice that this is Cleveland's garage on the corner of Academy and Cannon. Hard rubber tires, no windshield. In a short while you see the man selling gasoline on the curb. You drive up to the curb as he points, he'd fill a 5-gallon can and you'd get gasoline in your car. He'd pour it in. It's considered a very dangerous article in those days. This is Bevere and Yoakum Drugstore. Delamater's Garage on Washington Street, now a bowling alley, right near the Fallkill Creek. One of Poughkeepsie's first garages. Doty and Humphreys and the staff. The young fellow with the bow tie was Donald Tongue. This is now Perlmutter's store on the corner of Crandall and Main. Traffic was not a problem in those days. Zimmer House and Rochester Beer, 221 Main Street. This is the Hock Shop. Yes, they had them in those days as well as today. And they're still in business. This is Mr. Pappas, one of Poughkeepsie's first restaurant men. The Busy Bee Restaurant. This is where the lawyers all went for lunch. This is George Flutie and Sons. George will turn to the right and the Sons turn to the left, but this is Poughkeepsie's first furniture store. Very high quality merchandise. Yes, they had them in those days too. This is Wallace Company. We understand this was the introduction of the Annette Kellerman bathing suit, one-piece bathing suit. Before this, the ladies went swimming in their dresses. Jacob Strout, founder of the Strout's Ice Cream, and his sons behind him. One of them became mayor of Poughkeepsie in 1920. Again, Jacob, the original man of this, now became the National Dairy. The girls who worked for him in this soda fountain. Again, William Shickley and W.W. Smith, a very wonderful man in Poughkeepsie, gave College Hill, Presbyterian Church, and many other things. This is Smith Brothers Restaurant and the girls that worked there. The girls lived on the 3rd floor. Smiths gave this is Smith Brothers Restaurant on Cannon Street, on Church Street, I beg your pardon, on Church Street, to the east of the Armory, opposite the Amrita Club, was the first Smith Brothers factory, where they made the black cough drop. The formula, it is said, how true it is no one knows, but they claim that a tramp getting a free meal in back of Smith Brothers Restaurant gave Smith Brothers the formula for the cough drop. Smiths never turned away a person for a meal. They could not afford to buy one. Very, very generous people. The cough drop was packed in people's homes. It was taken home and put in a little 5-cent box in people's homes. This is the Knickerbocker Restaurant. These are lawyers from Market Street, and we need to identify each one individually. paper boxes. It was said that a woman stopped this man driving, said that there was too many boxes on for the poor little horse. And the driver said, "Lady, those boxes are as empty as your head." This is the O.H. Booth Hose Company, firehouse. The three horses were well known by everyone, and very friendly, and very efficient. It's the public schools. This is Professor Moody of the Ellsworth School. The Ellsworth School and the W.W. Smith School were drawn by the same architect. The Board of Education hired the architect to draw one set of plans and used them twice. The W.W. Smith and the Ellsworth School are exactly the same. Remember, these children now would be 60, 70 years old. The jumping of the building is from the old film and not the way it was constructed. First year of the W.W. Smith Street School on Church Street. No lawn yet. And do you recognize grandmother, grandfather, great uncle? Good-looking children, weren't they? Remember, this is before the First World War. Happy? Board of Education. This is LaPaw, the truant officer on the left. These are the Poughkeepsie High School on the corner of Washington and Lafayette Place. It was a privilege to go to high school in those days because many people stopped at the 8th grade. So those that had the opportunity to go 4 more were considered very privileged.
In 1998, a researcher, while studying another subject altogether, accidentally discovered the secret of who made this film and why. Apparently in 1913, there was a man named Edwin S. Canman, who, somewhat like Harold Hill in The Music Man, made a living traveling from town to town, taking motion picture film of local personalities and scenes. He would then process and edit the film, rent the local theater, and sell tickets. In 1913, few people would have ever seen themselves in a movie, and Mr. Canman knew that the more people he photographed, the more tickets he would sell. Publicity was thus central to his success, and as you can see from these clips, Mr. Canman was very good at getting it. A steady stream of notices and puff pieces appear in the Poughkeepsie Eagle during the filming. After a couple of weeks processing and editing the film, more ballyhoo announced the upcoming premiere, and large display ads were placed. Mr. Canman rented the Collingwood Opera House, now the Bardavon, and proceeded to sell tickets to his actors and all their family and friends. Since virtually everyone in town had been filmed, virtually everyone wanted to see themselves, and consequently, virtually everyone bought tickets. The review was all that Mr. Canman could wish. A valentine, including such lines as, "Virtually everyone will want to see them, and everyone in town will be on hand." The twist to this story is that Mr. Canman apparently followed the tradition of show business hucksters since Shakespeare's day. After showing for some time and selling about every ticket he could, Mr. Canman had his bags packed and was about to leave town, leaving at least one unpaid bill behind him. A car rental agent, a Mr. A. Webb Eggleston, knowing that Mr. Canman would soon be on to the next city, struck first. With a court order in hand, Sheriff Hornbeck took the film right out of the projector at the Collingwood and took it down to his office against an unpaid $35 car rental fee. Despite Mr. Canman calling the sheriff and saying he would be right over to straighten out the misunderstanding, he was never seen again. And the film, or at least part of it, was sold for $10 to one Alexander Dow on speculation. That is the story of the film clip you have just seen. But as of 2000, mysteries still remain. How did the film get to that barn in Pauling, and what happened to the rest of it? Perhaps these questions